President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to receive the final installment of the state capture report electronically this evening. The official handover by Commission Chairperson Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will take place tomorrow at the Union Buildings. President Ramaphosa will now have to present a clear program of action on the implementation of recommendations in Parliament. Samkele Maseko filed this report earlier.
A 3-year-long commission finally comes to its conclusion this afternoon with an electronic copy of the state capture report of its final bundle being sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa. The President will receive a physical bundle from the Chief Justice, who is the Chairperson of the State Capture Commission, Raymond Zondo, tomorrow afternoon at the Union Buildings. Now, the ball must roll, with law enforcement agencies having to act against those whom have been found to have been fingered in wrongdoing by the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Wrongdoing has been found in Transnet, in Prasa, Denel, South African Airways, and also the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC. A number of business people, private entities, McKinsey, you go to KPMG, and other entities like EOH have also been found to have acted wrongfully. Some of these private entities have promised to bring back all of the illegal proceeds that they gained from the state capture project. The Gupta family, which is at the heart of the state capture within the country, has also been arrested in Dubai. Extradition is in process to get them back in South African soil to face those charges of money laundering and racketeering. Issues pertaining to the Estina Dairy Farm will also be pertained in the electronic copy and the final installment to be sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa. The President has pledged to the National Assembly that government will have a clear program of action post this final installment, which will be presented to the people of South Africa and to the National Assembly once the President has applied his mind, and all of those whom are implicated in the executive will have their heads rolling if they are found guilty by the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. The Commission has already recommended that the President take steps and actions against ministers like Zizi Kodwa, further investigations against the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, for his role with Bosasa and the security upgrades at his home. Politicians like Vincent Smith have also been found to be at the center of allegations of corruption, of a dubious relationship with African Global Operations, formerly trading as Bosasa. There is also evidence against individuals like the Chairperson of Chairpersons within Parliament, Cedric Froelich, whom also has to face the music when it comes to the state capture report. A number of these ministers and deputy ministers have also taken this report on review, like Gwede Mantashe, like Zizi Kodwa, like Thabang Makwetla, whom has also been fingered to have had a dubious relationship with African Global Operations, formerly trading as Bosasa. But the pudding will be in the proof of what happens when the President finally provides a clear program of action of bringing the corrupt to book and heads rolling. Samkele Maseko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze joins us now to share his opinion on Part 5 of the Zondo Commission report on state capture. Professor Kotze, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I mean, we can have a brief, a summation of the other four in just a moment, but it may be difficult to guess what will be in it, but do we have a sense of what should be in it, given what's already come out?
Yes, I think over and above the SABC, and about that we can speculate about. The next one is the State Security Agency. I think a lot of evidence were presented to the Zondo Commission. There's numerous aspects that's relevant there. There's, for example, the fact that there was that special fund. It wasn't audited and was used for special projects, and together with that parallel network of informants that they've used that were beyond any form of auditing that took place there. Some evidence was presented that some of that money might have gone to the funding of candidates during the 2017 ANC conference at Nasrec. That implicates someone like Arthur Fraser, for example, which is very much obviously in the news at the moment also. And that can maybe we can start to connect some of the dots as a result of that. In the case of Estina, the dairy farm, there a court case is already in the process, although at the moment it's not very active. But some persons have already been charged. And it is, so some of that information is already in the public domain. When it comes to the Waterkloof landing of the Gupta aeroplane there, I think what will be interesting is the fact that there were already disciplinary hearings within the DIRCO as well as the Defence Force, and some senior officials were dismissed as a result of that. But I think the more political components of that and the impact or where it fits into the broader picture of state capture and the role of the Gupta family, that is something which I think will be more broader set out in this report. And then PRASA, a lot has already, or some of it has already appeared in the first 4 parts of the report. So one doesn't know exactly what they are going to concentrate on in this particular part of the total report. But when we think about, for example, the locomotives that contract that became very much controversial, the persons who have been involved in senior persons in PRASA, in their relationship with some of the Chinese companies that provided these locomotives, I think that will be set out in much more detail, and the recommendations or the conclusions that the judge would reach also will be quite interesting in that respect.
I mean, just looking back at part 4 of the report, one of the recommendations was for criminal charges to be instituted not only against members of the Gupta family, but also the removal of Zizi Kodwa from Deputy State Security Minister portfolio. I raise this based on some of what you said because in understanding the terms of reference of the State Capture Commission, much was made about it while it was being formulated, and much was made about it in terms of let's wait and see now just how far it goes in bringing us to some form or sense of justice. How likely are these to be done quickly, given the current political environment you just described?
Well, I think we should not expect it from that report. That report is an investigative report. It's a report which is not, as we all know, it's not the same as that of a court of law, so they can't come to a final conclusion about it. And therefore, what we've seen in the form of 4 parts is very much sometimes a tentative conclusion with then a recommendation, either to say there's sufficient evidence that charges can be considered or that more investigations must be made. I think what is important about the work of the Zondo Commission is that they've done the tedious work. They've gone through all or very much of the information that's available. They've collated them, brought them together, and set up actually the scene for the investigative directorate to continue with that, as well as the Hawks and other agencies that will become involved in it. So in that sense, they've done the long-term or the work that takes a lot of time and assist now. But also, I think what the Commission has achieved in this process is that they've developed a core of expertise and of persons, investigators, also those who led the evidence, who can be used to a large extent by the NPA.
Before I run out of time, I do need to hear from you. Just based on your expertise, you've obviously been following it very closely. There have been allegations that have been made that the State Capture Commission is being used to settle political scores, including fingers being pointed at Justice Zondo himself, the manner in which he's either interpreted certain testimony before it and therefore concluded in his recommendations on the particular type of action. What is the likelihood of that, given the fact that there were clear terms of reference and it might make recommendations, but it is prevented from overreach in certain places?
Well, the Commission worked in a highly politicized environment. It's impossible to argue that they could do their work purely on a sort of an objective basis without any political connotations or political influences or political context in this respect. So it's very difficult for anyone, any person, irrespective of how objective you are, in order to be able to say they are completely sort of non-affected by any of these different pressures that played out during the 4 years of the Commission. I think in the end, this is as I said, is the first step. They didn't come to absolute conclusions about any person or about any entity to say there's sufficient evidence that they will be found guilty. So in that sense, it is, as I presented it earlier on, it is a way I've done most of the preparatory work and setting it up, the scene or the situation for the further investigations and the prosecuting authorities to take it further. So that, I think, is the main function. Whether what has happened with regard to President Zuma, yes, that is going to debate for many, many years in future, about the fact that he didn't want to participate in the commission, that ultimately it led to his incarceration by the Constitutional Court. That possibly is the epitome of the political dimensions, I would say, of the Zondo Commission, and why the Zondo Commission will be remembered for very long, also from a political point of view, because that had a direct impact on the internal politics of the ANC.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor Dirk Kotze. He is a political analyst at the University of South Africa. Let's get another perspective now on the fifth part of the State Capture Commission. We have asked the South African Communist Party's Alex Mashilo to speak to us about this. He's the party's Central Committee member of communications. So, I mean, just looking at some of the highlights of what the State Capture Commission was looking at. So part one, you'd remember, volume one looked at South African Airways and related companies. There's a Gupta owned New Age newspaper and the South African Revenue Services. Several high-profile names came to the fore in terms of recommendations on how to proceed. Criminal action or charges should be preferred against them. This is what the State Capture Commission found. Volume 2, it dealt with corruption allegations at Transnet until now. And the report implicated former Enterprises Minister Malusi Gigaba Brown, as well as former Transnet Group CEO Brian Molefe. And there was also Volume 3, which was released in March, which was dedicated to corruption allegations at Bosasa. So that was later renamed African Global Operations. The allegations being that Bosasa used its proximity to certain politicians to garner influence and favor. It named several of them. The fourth installment, which was also released a few months ago. Among them also looked at the capture at Eskom and the Free State's controversial R1 billion housing project. So lots to chew on. Alex Mashilo of the South African Communist Party joins us now to speak about this. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mashilo. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. We're speaking to Professor Dirk Kotze earlier on, that was saying, given the political environment which the State Capture Commission itself operated, it cannot be exempt from being somewhat impacted on. And I know there's a difference between impacted and influenced, but we'd like to hear from the SACP. Do you feel that not only can we trust that there was a great deal of impartiality in looking at the players that were involved in state capture, and that they've been dealt with even-handedly in terms of the recommendations?
The Commission has done its work. I think South Africans should, and on behalf of the SACP, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Chairperson of the Commission, who was, for the most part, the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, chairing the commission under very difficult circumstances and personalized attack against him. Obviously, there are no processes that are without their own witnesses. However, most of the work done by the commission speaks for itself and will go a long way if all South Africans study the reports of the commission from the first installment to the last installment and internalize the findings so that what happened in the form of state capture will not rear its ugly head again.
The independence of the judiciary, a big part of conversations in the public arena in the last couple of months, and there have been threats of exposing individual judges and their so-called meddling or complicity in some of the political games that have been played that are very much central to state capture. I mean, there's a court of public opinion on the one hand, which, as you say, would be influenced by people empowering themselves and reading the commission report itself. But how do you say to South Africans, rest assured that everybody who has who's played a central role will be investigated, is being investigated? And I'll say quite plainly, there have been suggestions that those who are in President Cyril Ramaphosa's camp seem untouched, unscathed by this. I'd like to hear your thoughts about this.
It is important that we look at who says what in the public arena and where do those individuals or their groupings stand in relation to what the commission was investigating. Some of the things you mentioned come from the people who were exposed at the commission. They were obviously reacting against the testimonies presented at the commission. Their weight cannot be taken as an objective weight in relation to the work that the commission was performing. I mean, we should be concerned, for example, that in 2 days, in December 2017, when the ANC held its 54th National Conference, in just 2 days only, an amount of over 36 million rand was dispensed from the State Security Agency in what the witnesses who testified at the commission, Dr. Skomamaru, who was the Inspector General of Intelligence, Dr. Sidney Mufamadi, head of the high-level review panel into the SSA, and the Acting Director General of the SSA, Loyiso Jafta, clearly characterized as the money having been dispensed to support a faction in the contest of leadership at that conference. The issue is, where are the individuals saying what you have mentioned stand, and where did they stand in that leadership context? It is most probably that it is the individuals who were served by this over 36 million rand, which was dispensed from the State Security Agency. And as Loyiso Jafta said, over and above an amount that exceeds 9 billion rand that could not be accounted for either in cash or in assets. And Dr. Sidney Mufamadi said between 2015 and 2017, over 80 billion rand from the SSA was moved in the form of cash. These monies were moved in the context of the contestations that took place within the African National Congress for the leadership of the ANC, and not in our own words, but in the words of those who testified before the commission as part of supporting a faction.
All right.
The truth of the matter is that these people who started questioning the judiciary may have been part of the faction that benefited from this theft of public funds.
We are running out of time, and I do need to ask you this question. Are we the worse off for it that former President Jacob Zuma was unable or did not participate into the State Capture Commission, and the Guptas themselves. We know that they were only arrested recently, so we do not have the benefit of their testimony. Are we the worse off for it? And secondly, it is a two-pronged question, I realize. Given the political intrigue that surrounds President Cyril Ramaphosa at the moment and the allegations that he faces, is it a case of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't? Because is he going to be judged on the State Capture Commission recommendations and consultations, or through the prism of those who feel that he's got something to lose, therefore he won't take action against certain individuals and will take action against certain individuals?
No, definitely action has to be taken. And you see, these monies that were mentioned to have been stolen from the SSA are not a small amount of funds. So no amount of allegations or threats should threaten the process to take action against those who were complicit and those who were involved. And here we are dealing with the report of the commission that did its work over the past 2 years. It is important to, like, when we are in meetings, when we deal with an item that is on the agenda, to focus on that item. And the item at the moment is the report of the Commission of Inquiry into state capture and the impartial implementation of its findings. Those who did not appear at the commission did so at their own behest. The law will have to take its course, and the recommendations will have to be implemented comprehensively so that what happened will not happen again.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing the insights from the SACP's perspective. Much appreciated. Alex Mashilo is the South African Communist Party's Central Committee member of communications, compartmentalizing and prioritizing. He says that'll be far more important as we take it in bite sizes. It's a 5-part report by the Zondo Commission. You'd recall that the Zondo Commission had asked for an extension for this final bit. We understand an electronic copy is to be sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa today and a formal handover done tomorrow. So we will bring you up to speed with those developments as and when they occur. You're watching The Globe here on SABC News Channel. Do stay with us, still more news to come.